So, Pete, you've been advocating for co-production for a long time. So we'd be really interested to know how far you think we've got, and what have been the main barriers to the progress.
Yeah, I think we have made progress, and I mean when I first got involved, I mean the idea that people should be involved was outlandish. It was really fringe. It was considered very marginal, and now it's really gone mainstream. I mean, it's astonishing the people that get in touch to ask about consultancy. I mean, the Red Cross got big programs about co-production. The Scottish equivalent of the National Trust, that runs all the old stately homes. I mean, not that I've actually working with these people, but they've got in touch. They're interested in co-production, and I think it's just, and I think it is going back to that COVID. The sort of COVID has changed everything, and I think it's given people more faith in collective action, and I think that's a big change. But I think the barriers. I think there's also, alongside that, it's a complicated picture. I think people have got a lot less faith in the state and in expertise, and sort of like there's a lot of mistrust in society. And I think that's, and in a way, a lot of pessimism, that people think that things can't be done differently, they can't get better. And so I think that's a big barrier, that just sort of that kind of pessimistic kind of, and a sort of a lot of sort of splits in society, and a lot of people are ready to distrust and to be suspicious of other people. And I think that's a really big barrier. I think then the professions and the sort of different stakeholders that sort of produce like the services and the system as we know it. So the sort of like everything from the drug companies to the sort of doctors associations, the Royal College of Psychiatrists, and the sort of the way that doctors are trained, and the way that other professionals are trained. All those sorts of things mean that it becomes very hard to change things, I think, because it's so complicated. And we're trying to change people's habits. We're trying to change people's mindset and a way of thinking, and that it should be automatic to involve people. And then it's also that the services are under so much pressure. Services are in a crisis, really, almost constantly, and so that's not conducive to co-producing. So I think there's a lot of things, barriers. And then I think the benefit system and the system of pay, that it's very difficult to pay people when they're on benefits, and that larger organisations, even if people aren't on benefits, they're worried about are these people employed? Are they, do we need to give them sick leave? All these sorts of questions, I think, make it complicated to pay people, and that's like really fundamental. So I think if there was a universal way of paying people, and it was easier, that would really give co-production a big boost, I think.
I agree. Thank you. Really comprehensive. And that leads me to actually bring Nat in, because when Nat and I were co-designing some of our workshop that we deliver, you had some really great thoughts, Nat, around COVID and how stopping is actually really important. Did you want to explain a bit about that?
Yeah. And that's great that you've mentioned COVID a few times today. So that whole concept that we all stop together, and that normalised a lot of things into society that were often disregarded and not really given much thought. Like people spending time in isolation on their own, people not seeing friends and family. Basically having your emotional needs met, and that became apparent for the whole of society rather than just people on the fringes of society. So it was that concept that in a world that never stops, we do need to stop sometimes. But actually, if you can't stop with an individual in crisis, their world doesn't keep spinning like your world keeps spinning. So you sort of compound an individual's ability to move forward constructively. And obviously, if you can stop with an individual, there's a lot more input that can be given, and hopefully a better outcome can come of that. But it's trying to get a world that isn't designed to stop by default to stop, on an individual level, which, as we all know, isn't always easy, is it? But yeah, no, it's that kind of concept that we do need to stop sometimes in society, and how can we give people the tools to do that without completely shutting them down to the point of where they lose everything.
And it's a bit like services that are already overstretched and under-resourced, and they're, going like mad just trying to keep up with everything. And then you sort of try to introduce a bit of co-production, and they're a bit like, I'm too busy trying to, run this service. How can I stop now to try and, introduce this co-production?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of like stepping back and reflecting and trying to find time to do that, and trying to do that with other people. But it's we're all supposed to be so busy all the time and like rushing around and sort of like trying to get things done. But sometimes the stuff that we're doing is just busyness, and it's, trying to be important, and, rather than just sort of taking a bit of time, I think, just to step back. And I think we all need to try to do that. And that should be that should be really valued. But I don't think we value that enough.
Yeah, and it's sort of in a recent news article touching on that was to do with pregnancy and men having the same amount of time off as a woman does when they have the child, and actually sharing that responsibility a bit more in society, and actually normalising that it is okay for both parents to be off for a period of time whilst the mother's, with the newly born child. Some people in society have steam coming out their ears and go, how could you do that? Well, actually, it's important to kind of challenge some of these outdated ideologies that don't suit the modern lifestyles that we have, and that, again, is a good example of an old sort of adage that doesn't have any legs in modern society, really.
Maybe we could lobby the government to introduce a national co-production day where all services just get to do nothing else except do a co-production day, like we have bank holidays.
Well, you joke.
Brilliant idea, love it.
Yeah, it is a brilliant idea. You joke, and actually, that is a very important point, because if we amplify positive co-production in society, those people who say, "No, what's the point? It doesn't work," you've got tangible examples to show those people, yes, it does work. And here's some great examples, on a day to highlight them. That would be amazing.
Suffolk sounds like just the place to do that, to have your own Suffolk co-production day, where you sort of, everybody stops and, I don't know, has a massive conference or event or something. It'd be great.
Yeah, or share some great examples of how co-production has had a real positive impact. Yeah.